Okay, I think we're good. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Forever Conscious Research Channel. Hope you're having a good evening. Good weekend so far. It's good to see you again. Tonight I want to start off this stream. You know, you never know where people's heads are at with certain things and, how they're doing for the day or maybe month, a year, how things are going. So when I cover something like this, I want to be as upfront as possible and say that if you're not in the best of moods, mental health wise, or even having thoughts of suicide, please don't listen. The other thing is if you are suicidal, to please make sure that you call your country's local emergency services phone number or your physician if necessary. So, first and foremost, I care about you all, and, so that's really important to me. Okay, so we're going to get into Sharon's near-death experience tonight. And Sharon had a rough upbringing, had 3 attempts, one at the age of 8, one at the age of 12, and then I think the one where she actually had the near-death experience. I should have this note. Let me bring it up. I should have had it up. My apologies. Okay, I don't have the age, but I think she mentions it. Sorry, I thought I had it notated. I have the ones from when she was a child, so that was 8 and 12. And the poor thing, she seems like a beautiful human being, and my heart goes out to her, but she also, seems better considering. Okay, she had a lot of health issues going into the near-death experience, and she was healed. She did come back. She was told that she was chosen before birth, and went through a healing experience during the near-death experience and came back healed, obviously. And I'll show a moment in the near-death experience where I've seen in other ones with people who come back healed. But she also dealt with an entity who had fire in his eyes and was controlling the show. She dropped to her knees and was seduced by the love bomb. So we've got to be upfront about what's going on, and also put this in the bucket of evidence to help further the Matrix reincarnation soul trap. So, you don't give consent. That's the bottom line. Yep. That's what Ms. Ellie says. I don't think it matters how one dies, but what happens when you die. Do not give consent. Yep. And I am going to put that up here, and we will get going. Just so you know, the N.D.E does start off a little, the video starts off a little slow. She doesn't really start saying much about her experience until about, I think, 10 or 15 minutes in, 10, 12 minutes in, something like that. But it builds a foundation for the, what she dealt with. And you got to ask yourself, if you're chosen, what kind of it's not a very good life script that was given to her and agreed or consented to either. I mean, it's okay. Let's not get into it. I mean, let's get into it. Let's not. I don't want to keep droning. Okay.
Hi, this is Aaron Peters, and we're talking with Sharon. And Sharon's been. You're currently an elder at Indian Métis Friendship Center,
Yes.
right? And you wanted to talk about some pretty serious stuff. You wanted to talk about suicide.
Yes, I want to talk about suicide.
So Sharon told me her story, and it's a pretty heavy story. Sharon actually committed suicide, and came back, right?
Yeah.
Now, first of all, before we get into the nitty-gritty of your story, I wanted to. The thing that struck me about your story is that you were dead.
I was dead.
And you know this because when you came back, your body.
My body was cold.
Yeah.
My coloring was, my skin was gray. Then my nails were purple blue. My lips were purple and blue. And,
you looked in the mirror and you saw all this.
I saw it. And I looked in the mirror and I saw it.
Yeah.
And I was so cold, and it was the hottest day of that year.
And that's an important part. It shows right away that it's a person who died. You know, she's showing all the symptoms of death, and she came back from it. And she goes into further detail later on about just how far along she was.
This happened in Winnipeg?
No, it happened in Calgary.
Happened in Calgary.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Do you want to talk about the man on the bridge, or do you want to go right into your story, because it takes a little bit of time?
I'll start with the man on the bridge.
Okay. So you were 8 years old.
No, when I seen the man on the bridge, I was 3.
You were 3 years old.
I was 3 when I seen the man on the bridge. I had woken up, and I was used to having my grandparents around.
And this was in Winnipeg because
That
it was
was
the
in
Salter
Winnipeg.
Bridge.
Yes, it was Salter Bridge.
Okay. And
And
back in the days when they had
The staircases.
the staircases.
Yeah.
They don't have that anymore.
They don't have it anymore now. Yeah, so we used to live on Henry Avenue, and my grandparents used to live very close by us. And I was used to having my grandfather around, and my grandmother. And when I woke up I woke up around 3 o'clock. And the reason why I say that is because that's the time I wake up all the time, still today. And I looked around.
Which is interesting. I mean, that's an hour to wake up where you're more prone to activity and receiving outside influence.
That's the time I wake up all the time, still today. And I looked around for my grandparents and couldn't find them, so I left my house. My mom and dad were still sleeping. And I remembered them talking about moving across the bridge.
Your grandparents moved
My
from where they usually lived, which is where did they usually live?
They used to live right across the street from us on Henry Avenue, just on the other side of the Salter Bridge, and then they moved over to where the developments are, on Stella Walk.
And you went to go see them.
And I went to go see him 3 o'clock in the morning. And
why were you? Was that a regular thing that you did?
yeah, I was used to being up with my grandparents at that time, especially my grandfather. He was up every day at 3 o'clock, and we'd have breakfast, and then everybody else would be asleep, and he'd tell me stories. So I was used to being up with my grandpa, and he wasn't around. So I went looking for him. That's the reason why I ended up on the bridge. And when I was going up the side of the bridge and the stairways, I come across this man sitting there. And he was tying a belt onto the staircases. And he was referring to me as a little angel, and he says, "Look here, little angel," he says, you're not gonna help me tonight." He says, "I don't want anybody to help me." He says, "So you be on your way," he says, "and you make sure you don't look back." So I didn't know what he was talking about, so I just started to walk over the bridge, and I can hear the metal, the pulling on the metal and that, and then something dangling, but I didn't look back like he told me to. I just kept going, and
You remember the sound of that?
I remember the sound of that distinctly. Yeah,
There she does.
yeah. And I remember when I got to my grandparents' place, and I told my grandfather about what had happened. Of course, my grandfather had to check it out first, and when he got back, he made a phone call. Yeah. But I didn't know back then that that was my first experience with somebody committing suicide. Not until I got older and I started to understand what suicide really was all about.
So, you can see how, at a very young age, she's already running into darkness. And where she goes with this, you can't help but ask, this was some sort of scripted, laid out plan that stuck with her and was there by design.
You've had a lot of, well, we're Native people, so
Yeah.
we've had a lot of experience with people who have committed suicide in our circles.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't experienced actually talking to somebody who, like yourself, who came back.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty unique for me to have this conversation.
Yeah.
You want to get right into it?
Yeah, but I think that I want to explain first that my mom was a residential school survivor. Well, she didn't really survive. She ended up dying before all the residential school money came out. And my mom was very suicidal. She was always talking about suicide and taking her life and things like that, and sending us to CFS. So I started to understand, for her though, she used it as a tool to get what she wanted.
She used suicide as a tool?
She used suicide as a tool to get what she wanted. And I think for her it was because the only thing that we knew of value was life. Life had value. Life was sacred. And that's why she used to threaten suicide. And for me, my first attempt at suicide was when I was about 8 years old. And I took a bunch of pills. I took nerve pills back then because I had a nervous rash on both my arms here. And they had me on nerve pills. And I never really got to take them. My mom used to take them instead. But I was the one who was, like, I was trying to maintain a life, taking care of my brothers and sisters, and I had to take care of my mom because she was not only addicted to pills, she was also addicted to alcohol. And
She grows up in a very difficult environment. She experiences the inner knowing of someone plunging to their death off a bridge. And then she has a mother who has substance abuse problems, which certainly don't help things either and compound issues, and her life continues to go on a path that, if one is choosing a life script and later on she is told she is chosen and has things to finish here, it's pretty dark and extremely sad that this type of thing is allowed to go on, that people don't see a problem with this. You know, this is, I'm going to try not to get upset tonight and fly off the handle, but my heart aches for this woman. And Sharon, if you're ever listening to this, this video is not a reflection on you at all. You're a very brave and admirable woman and a beautiful spirit. And I hope you get out of here when your time comes.
I felt like there was a lot of pressure on me, and I just wanted,
At 8 years old.
At 8 years old, and I just wanted to end my life. And I took pills, and I remember going to the hospital. My mom was beating me up all the way, and then when I got to the hospital, like she hit me and told me to walk, because the doctors wanted me to walk, and I had to show them that I could walk. And I did the best that I could do, and even I was staggering, and they kept me for the night. And then the next day my mom says, you better walk, because I'm going to punch you out if you don't. So I walked, and I took it really slow and took it very carefully, because I didn't want to get beaten up. Right? And then my mom was also mad because I took all the pills.
Can you imagine this? I mean, I don't even really need to say anything here, sorry.
Not just mine, I took hers as well. So she had nothing. And
That was your first suicide attempt at 8 years old?
Yeah, my first suicide attempt. And later on I tried slashing my wrist.
How old were you when you did that?
I was about 12. I was about 12 years old, 13, somewhere around there. And then when I was in my 20s, my early 20s, my mom passed away from cancer, and she had saved my life. And I was so angry at her. I thought that, because alcohol, she became a rubby.
So, when you say that she saved your life, that's...
You know what a rubby is? I looked it up, and I assumed I knew what it was, but it's someone who drinks rubbing alcohol as their source of drinking.
It's because of the accident, right?
Yeah.
Quickly tell us about the accident.
My mom was sober that day, and her and I went to get our eyes examined and pick out our glasses, and we were living in Calgary at the time, and on McLeod Trail, there's the lanes are about 4, maybe 5 lanes to the road, and then there's a median, and then 4 or 5 lanes on the other side, one going one way, one going the other. And we were at a stop crosswalk. So we were crossing the road, and the very last lane, and I was walking ahead of my mother, and she come up behind me and she pushed me, and I remember the car hitting my hand. It hit my right hand, and it knocked my arm up, And when I turned around to look at my mom, it was like it was in slow motion. And she hit the windshield, like the car hit her, and then she rolled across the hood, and then she hit the windshield, and she slowly fell to the ground.
And what happened was you got to see all that, and she had a cracked pelvis.
Yeah, she had a cracked pelvis, and there was a lot of bruising, and the doctors just told her to come back and they'd check on her. And about a year later, that cracked pelvis turned into cancer, like the broken pelvis turned into cancer. And I know it was from that injury, because there was no other reason for her to get cancer in that area. And my mom, when she got really, really super ill, I spent a lot of time with her, and I was taking nursing at the time. And
How old are you now during this time?
how old am I now?
Like, while you're talking, where you got to know your mom?
Oh, I was I was about 21 when I started to get to know my mom.
And how old were you when the accident happened?
I was 20. I was 20. And anyway, my mom was, I started to get to know this woman. Like, it was like I never knew who she was all the time that she was drinking, because she was a different woman. And when she was sober, she was such a beautiful woman, very kind and caring and loving. And I never really knew her. So I was just starting to get to know who my mom was. Like, you know, who she really was without the alcohol. And I was so angry when she passed, because I felt cheated. And anyway,
this is something I've seen before where, you have a family member who person grows up with, and they finally get like a diagnosis that is really difficult and terminal, and they try to turn their life around in that last moment, and it doesn't really pan out, and the haze subsides, and the real parent or person in one's life comes out. And so when she says here, I was deprived of that authentic experience, she's absolutely right. And it's just a very, very sad thing. But nonetheless, it's common. It's a very common thing here.
I was also very angry at my first husband, because he stole her wedding bands, her wedding rings, and I knew where they were, and she kept asking for them when she was on her deathbed. And it was very disturbing to me, because I wanted to give them back to her. And I knew that my husband had stolen them, and he had traded the rings for a car. And
imagine that. All this going on, and then that happens. It's like, what?
I carried that guilt. I carried that guilt, and it really wasn't mine to carry, but I carried it anyway. And my marriage broke up, I think maybe about 3 to 6 months later. And I paid him to leave me. I gave him money to go. Told him that he wasn't going to, if he came back, I wasn't going to take him back. And he left. And when he left, I went on a rampage of alcohol and drugs myself. And I was doing some pretty heavy duty drugs, and I drank quite a bit. And I had a bad reputation for fighting and stuff. The man at the bar, he used to pay me $15 a night if I left quietly, because he said that I made his bouncers look like they were sex or whatever. I didn't understand what he meant. And anyway, I got to a point in my life where I just wanted to give up. I was in so much despair, and felt my children would be better off without me as well. They'd have a better life without me, because I didn't really have too much of a life to offer. And anyway, I just wanted to give up, and I had cancer myself. I had breast cancer at the time, and I had black fluid coming from my breast, and the doctors were giving me a lot of Tylenol 3s.
It's important to remember what you mentioned about the black fluid coming from her breast, because later on you'll hear an incredible statement from her about her health and how she basically was healed right out the jump when she came back.
And I didn't really take them, but I kept them in the medicine cabinet at my sister's place. Now, when I finally decided that I wanted to die, I had this plan already in my head, and I went out and I got myself a Mickey of whiskey, and I went inside the bathroom and started swallowing the pills. And there must have been about 90 of those Tylenol 3s, because I had a lot of those bottles. I had about 3 different bottles, and I swallowed all of them. I think maybe I might have dropped a couple down the sink, but I basically swallowed all of them. And I knew I was already starting to feel it, and I just started to drink the whiskey and went and sat down, made myself comfortable on the couch, and laid down and was ready to die. And when I first shut my eyes, I remember feeling that pain in my heart, that loneliness or despair, and that loss, that grief. But it was even worse, because I was first in this place where I can hear my brothers and sisters talking about me and saying, like, why was she so selfish? Why did she do that? And didn't she ever think about us? And I was just like, I can feel it tearing at my heart. And the more that I heard from my family members, the worse it felt.
And these are voices that you heard?
These were voices that I was hearing.
And what were you seeing as you were?
And at first I just seen, at first it was just dark, and then I was told I can hear this other voice, and it said, turn around. And I turned around, and I can see that very small speck of light.
Okay, so we're at a common juncture here where she sees the speck of light in the distance, but that's what's the attraction. Now what's interesting is what you'll hear next.
Way off in the distance, And I started walking towards it because I was told, now go to that light.
Because I was told, now go to that light. So this is something she was aware of. She knew that that's what she's supposed to do. And what I find interesting about this scenario with her is like, normally, well, not normally, but oftentimes with suicidal attempts, they will be dealing with a lot of stuff. A lot of weirdness, a lot of uncomfortable situations, and I just think it's really interesting that she has the knowledge in advance about the light. Sadly, but she knows, so she immediately sees it and knows to.
So I started walking towards that light, and I remember seeing the colors, different colors passing me by. And as I got closer to that light started getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And finally, it was just big enough for me to get in. It wasn't like a great big huge door. It was just big enough for me to get through. So I walked inside that light. But as I was going towards that light, I could hear that voice telling me, everybody has got a certain time on the earth. Everybody's given a certain time.
So immediately, she's getting a message transferred to her saying, ooh, hold it up, hold up. And
You would feel that pain, that suffering.
so now she's being guilt tripped, saying, this is a really tough one for me to do. But yeah.
That you had inflicted upon others until...
See, they're putting the guilt trip out there. But regardless, she's going to the wrong location anyways, but the point is something else is telling her. Something else is telling her, directing her, and she's listening.
Until your time was either up or they forgave you.
Oh, or they forgave you. It's interesting.
That pain, that suffering that you had inflicted upon others until your time was either up or they forgave you.
Your time was up, or they forgave you.
And that's how long you would have suffered. But because you were chosen before you were born to do something.
She was chosen before she was born to do something. This is a common how to say a tactic. Okay, it's trying to be as light as possible here. That is used with near-death experiences across the board. It's not unique to her, but it's something we see where, you know, someone is told they have a mission, they have unfinished business, they were chosen to do something and they have to fulfill it and ride it out, and their time is not now and you have to go back. It's all very common stuff we've seen over and over.
And that's how long you would have suffered. But because you were chosen before you were born to do something. Right? And no one else can do it but you.
No one else can do it but you. That's a really big burden and hook.
And that's the reason why you're being given this chance. And then I walked inside the light. And I dropped to my knees because I can feel that overwhelming sensation of love. It was just so beautiful. I never felt it. and I began to cry. It was so beautiful. I never experienced that kind of love in my lifetime. And anyway,
So you hear her say that she's never experienced love like that during her lifetime. And that's common. I mean, that's another commonality, another data point to throw out there. It's the most love that someone has ever experienced. The love experienced with the light cannot be compared to any love experienced on Earth. And again, I always say this because it's really, really important to drive it home with this point that I've heard time and time again mothers say that the love is even more powerful than the birth of their own children. I've heard even some say 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times, undescribable amount of love that cannot be compared to the love received there to here. And they chalk it up with the birth of their child or the day of their marriage, or, I mean, it doesn't male or female, but it's just interesting when, females say it because they're the ones conceiving the child. And, I mean, it's just not like the father doesn't, love the child, but it's just, it's the pinnacle of a loving moment in a woman's lifetime. I can't think of probably any other moment with the exception of marriage. But even then, I think bringing life into this world as a mother has to be the tip of the iceberg of love.
Seen a man standing there, and that man didn't have just one color of skin. His skin kept changing, all different colors. And when I looked into his eyes, he was like I could see fire in his eyes.
Okay, so the man's skin is changing colors, and he's got fire in his eyes. Let's rewind it.
And that man didn't have just one color of skin. His skin kept changing, all different colors. And when I looked into his eyes, he was like I could see fire.
Now, the reason I'm rewinding this and pausing it and rewinding it again is the changing of skin, the changing of colors, kind of something I've picked up on over the years is particularly with people who claim they are healed. They'll experience this color changing thing. Sometimes it'll be with an entity. Sometimes it'll be situational with something. But I feel that there's something there with the color changing experience. Not in every near-death experience, but I'm trying to zone in specifically on people who come back healed, and she is one of those. Okay, so it's just something to take away. I am not by any means saying, put it in the books as one of the biggest pattern recognition moments of this channel. No, I'm just saying it's something to be on the lookout for when you're doing your own research into this stuff in healing moments with people who come back and claim that they are healed and go through something. So just putting it out there.
In his eyes, there's nothing else I could see of him. And I can hear the water behind him. I knew that there was a lake because I can hear that water. And I can hear the children playing and dogs barking. They were happy. You can hear the happiness, eh? And the older people, I can hear them joking around and laughing as well. And I could have swore I recognized some of those voices.
Boom. There you go. Okay, so you have, the running water. Now, uh, garden scenes are often common. Running water, lakes, um, river streams with meadows are common in near-death experiences. It's you're not going to see it in everyone, but I'm just saying it's that is a pattern recognition point to put in the books, and she's experiencing running water, and she is experiencing an entity interaction that is um, quite literally healing her, and changes skin color, and has fiery red eyes, and she also hears voices in the distance that she recognizes. So I'm just going to rewind that segment again because this is a really important transition point in her story.
His eyes, the sea of him, and I can hear the water behind him. I knew that there was a lake because I can hear that water, and I can hear the children playing and dogs barking. They were happy. You can hear the happiness, eh? And the older people, I can hear them joking around and laughing as well. And I could have swore I recognized some of those voices. People that I knew that had passed. And that man started to talk, and he said, yes, you were chosen before you were born to do a job in the world that nobody else can do. And because of that, and the fact that you made a promise to God, the Great Spirit.
You made a promise. That's consent. See the consent coming out? You made a promise to God, or this entity that was pawning itself off as God. Very important moment again. I mean, this is really we're zoning in on the real meat of this near-death experience, where there's a lot coming out. It doesn't last too long, but the information that she shares in these moments are really, really crucial, and just excellent examples for the soul trap.
Yes, you were chosen before you were born to do a job in the world that nobody else can do. And because
Nobody
of
else can do
that,
it.
and the fact that you made a promise to God, the Great Spirit, the Creator of all things, because you made that promise, you have to fulfill it before you can come back here. And you have to go back. And when he said I had to go back, I grabbed hold of his legs.
You have to go back, and I grabbed his legs. I've seen a number of near-death experiences where a person is kneeling. She is describing just that, kneeling down at the entity's legs, begging not to go back. This can be seen in other ones. It's again, it's not one of these that you'll see all the time, but there's enough out there where, the way I see it, the system is happy that it is able to have a easy street on how to handle this situation. And again, I mean no offense to Sharon if she's listening. I just, there's certain things that need to be said about this to really drive it home, because there's just so many revealing parts of this near-death experience.
You can come back here, and you have to go back. And when he said I had to go back, I grabbed hold of his legs, and I grabbed hold of him tight, and I was begging him, please don't send me back. I don't want to go back. And he says, yeah, you must go back. He says, but so that you remember this visit and that this is real. Every time you look into the mirror, you're going you're going to have something to remember this by. And he sent me back. It was just like a bolt of lightning. And I remember sitting up and going, and my sister was sitting beside me on the chair beside the couch. And she dropped the phone and she went running across the room and she was swearing. She just ran out of the room. I don't even know where she went. And I realized I had a bunch of blankets on top of me. And yet it was such a hot day out. But my body, I was so cold. I was just shivering. My hands were shaking. My mouth was twittering, like when you're really super cold. And I went into the kitchen. And I started to pour myself a cup of coffee, trying to warm up. And my sister come running out of one of the rooms. And she grabbed the knife that was on the counter, and she grabbed it and she went, ooh, about this far away from my heart. She says, you ever want to do something like that again? She says, you just let me know and I'll do it for you. She says, you don't know what you put me through. And then later on she told me it was she was phoning the morgue to come and get me, the coroner's office, because I couldn't warm up. Because she didn't know that she knew I was gone after I didn't warm up, and I was dressed up so warm, with all those blankets. But when I first came through, I looked around and I went into the bathroom. I was still pretty cold for a long time. It took me a long time to warm up. But my skin was all gray. My lips were purple and blue. My eyes, around my eyes, they were purple and blue. My nails were all purple and blue as well. My hands, you can see that they were a gray color. Right, and I didn't look like myself. There was nothing there to indicate that I was alive. It was just like I was a walking corpse.
So you see the level of detail that she's sharing. For all the doubters out there, not like I feel there's any in this crowd, but this is about as obvious proof of the afterlife that one would need. As it shows just, she was, way, way beyond just a couple heartbeats, and coming back. She was deep on the other side, and she came back. And it said herself that it took her a while to get back to a normal temperature. She was cold, and all the other side effects that come along with it.
And I never noticed it right away. And at first I blew it off as, just a dream. But then I started to notice eagles, and medicine people were trying to give me feathers and eagle feathers, and I kept saying no, no, no. And some people said, well, come with us, we'll take you to the sacred mountain, and we'll get you to fast and you'll heal. But I did already heal. Like my breasts were no longer leaking when I woke up. I had no more black fluid coming from them, and I had no more pain.
I mean, she comes back from that, and she doesn't have the black fluid leaking from her. She's got the discolored skin, discolored nails, skin is off, had all these health problems, took this O.D., which led to her near-death experience, and she comes back, and she's healed. She's healed. She was literally healed during her near-death experience.
And I didn't notice my eyes until later on, because of course, when I first came back, I didn't want to believe it, so I was still drinking and doing drugs. And not for very much longer, though, because once they got me into a sweat lodge, because the things that I was experiencing, like I was experiencing visions and during the day, and I was experiencing nightmares during the night. And finally, when I went to the sweat lodge, I went inside there, and I was the only woman. There was no man. And I was told what to bring, because that medicine man phoned me and told me what to bring. And because women never used to go for sweats. I used to send my son to go for sweats, but I never went. And I guess he must have been telling that man what was going on, or that man somehow knew. So he phoned me and asked me to come. And when I went there, I went inside that lodge, and when I came out, I never had another drink. And because I was away from the drugs and the alcohol, like the heavy drugs and stuff like that, and I finally started to look inside the mirror. And when I looked inside the mirror, I started to notice that, because both my eyes used to change color, right? Both my eyes used to go blue, green, gray, and yellow. And they both used to change the same color. And sometimes they go almost to brown. And then I started to notice that my one eye was always blue. This eye here is always blue. And this eye here was the one that kept changing. And some days they're almost the same color, but they're never ever the exact same color.
Interesting. Very interesting.
I started to notice that my one eye was always blue. This eye here is always blue. And this eye here was the one that kept changing. And some days they're almost the same color, but they're never ever the exact same color. Yeah. So that's when I started to realize that it really was true. And for me, I was lucky I was sent back. Because if they didn't send me back, I wouldn't have went there. But the one thing that I remember is that...
So she made a statement of feeling lucky. And I'll leave it at that.
And for me, I was lucky I was sent back. Because if they didn't send me back, I wouldn't have went there.
And, her saying she's lucky, I mean, she came back and she's healed. So if you're going to come back, you might as well be healed, right? I mean, that's just how I would want to come back. If I had this upbringing, all these experiences that were just heartbreaking throughout one's life, my life, her life. If you're experiencing this, when you do end up coming back, then you want to make sure, or you don't want to make sure, you would prefer to come back healed. I'm sorry. It's kind of frazzled a little bit here. It's a tough one, this one. I got to be sensitive to the situation and respectful, because again, my heart goes out to Sharon. So,
but the one thing that I remember is that before he sent me back, he told me, he said that when I'm finished doing what I have to do, then I'll go home. Then I can go back there, but not until then. So I know that suicide isn't a way out. It's a way of creating more misery for your spirit.
Tell us again what he said about feeling that pain over, like,
Yeah, the pain, I would feel that pain and despair until my time was up. Because everybody's supposed to have a certain time to live in this world.
Yeah, he's talking about the guilt trip aspect of things. So, she was pressured.
Everybody's got a certain time. And if you take your life before that time is up, you will live in that place, that darkness, and you'll hear the voices of the loved ones, and you'll hear how they feel. You'll feel how they feel. You'll feel the pain that you inflicted from taking your life, because when I was taking my life, right up until that point, I didn't realize what I was doing to my loved ones, to my brothers and my sisters, and to my dad and my children. I thought nobody cared. And I learned that I was totally wrong, that I was hurting all these people. And it was my spirit, like if I would have stayed there, my spirit would have felt all of that pain that I caused them. And I would have carried that pain either until they forgave me.
All right. Do you see how this is being framed? Not her fault, but how it is. Again, it's the guilt, shame, fear, judgment matrix showing its ugly head. And she is an unfortunate victim of this. So, again, my heart goes out to her.
Right? Or until my time was up. And I believe that would have been a long time.
So she believes it would have been a long time. She would have, been dealing with a lot of unnecessary pain and agony had she made that decision and stayed. Self-induced because she is well past the consent phase and allowing that to be a part of her world, or her perception, I should say, her perception, and I'll go even further and say belief system. So, because she even had, the knowledge of the light and everything going on, going into this experience, and during the experience, she allowed something to take the reins. And yeah.
So I'm lucky that I was sent back.
so what goes through your mind when you think about, like, over the years, have you thought back to that whole experience? And what, like, how do you deal with it? What are your thoughts? Have your thoughts changed over the years since that happened to you, or?
Yeah. Oh yes, most definitely. I remember now the teachings. I really know the teachings now when they say life is sacred. I understand the sacredness of that life, and no matter what you go through in life, you'll never be able to. Creator will never give you more than what you can handle.
All right. We've heard her testimony, right? It seems more than evident that she was given more than she can handle. And unfortunately, went through absolute misery, this poor woman. And I just find it incredible that she can come out on the other end and say that, but she also, she came back healed. She had an experience with something outside of herself that was perceived to be extremely loving and powerful, although it had red eyes and shape-shifting skin and was telling her what to do, but I mean, the creator, the false creator that she is dealing with, gave her much more than she can handle, and she was dealt a very, very difficult and unfair life script, and she deserves better. And I hope that she gets, when her natural death comes, that she gets out of here and remains a sovereign and liberated being when her time comes naturally. Because I'm not going to go down the road of, what she did and talk about that publicly. There has to be certain lines drawn in the sand for everybody's protection, and I don't endorse or think going out like that is the way to go. I think you need to figure out your path and work on your exit for how it goes naturally. Now, obviously, if we perhaps talked outside of YouTube, I would say that, you have your life to live. I have my life to live. But I think most of our lives while we're here, as when we are in the know about the soul trap, should be a continual process of adding knowledge within us and working for when our time does come. Because even though I know that consent is the whole ball game, I'd still like some time to fine tune my exit plan. And that's the main reason why I haven't put out the video on how to exit the Matrix Reincarnation Soul Trap. It's not that it's really, it's easy, like what I plan to do, but at the same time, I am literally going to, when I put it out, I'm going to lay out every single point on my plan. And there have been people that said, "Oh, well, you're putting too much out there," and blah blah. I go, they know everything. It doesn't matter. I could put out, the entire thing. It will make no difference because, again, the life review proves overwhelmingly that every moment of every day is recorded while we are here. It's not debatable. It's a fact. So I don't care about sharing how I'm going to do it, but I want to do it in my time, and I want to be able to share my personal plan. And I want each of you to have your own plan on how you're going to do it, because you need to customize it to yourself. Remember, it's the intention. Everything is the intention in denying consent when the time comes. So you really should be working on this, thinking about this, and preparing yourself for when your time does come. But there's still so much to learn here. Even though we've learned the biggest truth of all time, It's the most positive outcome that we can imagine. That we don't have to come back here when our time comes naturally. Okay. Just take solace in knowing that when that time does come, you will be ready. You'll be ready. That's it.
You'll never be able to. Creator will never give you more than what you can handle, and you can always handle it by finding somebody to talk to. If it's not a human, you can go out in the bush. You can talk to animals. I do a lot of that because I have a problem with trusting people. So I've learned how to deal with that in other ways. Sometimes I go to the sweat lodge and I talk directly to Creator and grandfathers, or I find somebody that I can trust, and they're very few and far between. Like I said, I have a trust issue.
Me too.
But a dog will never tell nobody. A cat will never tell nobody. The trees, they'll whisper in the winds, but they'll never tell you, never tell what you're telling them. And I find a way of letting it go. And then one thing that I've learned is that I can always find a way out of it. There's never a reason to actually take your life. Like when I start feeling really bad, I'll ask a child, give me a hug. And when you feel the love of the child, then that gives you strength to carry on for that day. And one day leads into another and another. And sometimes when I make a mistake and I get myself into a place where I want to commit suicide, or you feel like that, what I do is I ask not only for forgiveness, but I also ask that I'll be given the strength to forgive myself, because we're the hardest ones on ourselves. Yeah, and I learned that one from an elder. But life is so sacred, we take it for granted.
The feelings of despair, I think, is something that
Orphan Red, is she? She admits she would get drunk high and beat people up at bars and beat up the bouncers. Did you happen to hear what the hell she went through and all of the ridiculous, horrible experiences she had growing up? Did you happen to miss that part? I'm not saying, we should be supporting things like that, but there has to also be some compassion and empathy for how one gets to that point. So, let's chill with that.
everybody can relate to at some point.
Yeah.
I know that I've felt that in my life too. When you said that you don't feel like we talked before about this, and you said that you felt like people would be better off without you.
Yeah.
Right? Like things would be better for them.
Yeah.
And I remember feeling that myself. And it's a really dark place to be. But that's a real place for a lot of people, where they really are convinced that their kids and their spouse and their family members will be better off if they weren't around. Like they're convinced of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's a real place.
Yeah, it is.
It's a real human place to be. I don't like all the suicides that are happening. And I just hope that by us talking like this, I hope that people can share this little film, and maybe sit down with their friends and family and watch it too, and maybe get some insight on what is real.
I think here in America, it's the same thing with the Native Americans or yes, I'm not even going to go down that road, but the history that's been skewed. But the point is it's a very, very big issue here in America. Suicides and alcoholism within Native American reservations, and that's because they have been infiltrated by the government, and that's been going on for a long, long time. And they were given some of the worst plots of land in the country, treated awful. And just like other communities within America, when you introduce certain things like alcohol and drugs and poverty and despair, loss of hope, it has a cascade effect, an intergenerational effect that can't be minimized or just, thrown away as if it was nothing, because it has a tremendous impact not just in the community but among the family, and it just carries on and on and on. And it goes back to some of the things we talked about in the past, guys, with the early childhood development, and how that is such an important part of fixing some of this. It's not going to change the world, but what it's going to do is it's going to change the important world within your vector, within your surroundings. Those are the things that we can fix and help right now. So make of it what you will. We can do some small changes. Now, are we going to, change this entire realm and stop all the crazy shit that's going on? No, we're not. But the point is from if you have a child, or if you have a child in your family, it's important that from, birth to age 6 or 7, you are trying to direct them, and you're trying to show them a path in the right direction that is beneficial to them, positive, where you are helping them think critically, asking questions about anything and everything, and in turn you get you're getting a better you're giving a better existence to that child. And that's about the best thing you can hope for. And if things pan out really well, you'll start to get rid of that intergenerational trauma that has been passed down through your family. And we can go even further and say that, it's related to all of the soul group connections that we make in the astral before we get here, and the life scripts and all that stuff. You can try and divert all of that, or not all of it, but a good chunk of it, and start to make progress in the right direction. And that's the best thing that I can suggest to anyone out there. It's a very positive message. And also, we talked about yesterday when Simon came on, we talked about other different things that you can do to help a child, your child, or one within your family or friends network, and try and just do the best you can to limit the exposure to outside influence and keep an ongoing narrative of positive influence, especially from birth to age 6, 7.
You know, because and people can share this little film and maybe sit down with their friends and family and watch it too, and maybe get some insight on what is real.
Yeah.
You know, because it's a pretty big issue for Native people. It's a huge issue for Native people. And the one thing that I want to see more of myself is I want to see more of us talking about it.
Yeah.
Because we don't talk about it.
No, we don't.
And we need to. We need each other. So I want to thank you for talking to me about it, because I think this is what it looks like. And we need to show the rest of the people that this is how you talk about suicide.
Yeah.
You share, you talk, you say what you need to say.
Yeah. And I'd like to see that too. And I know that from being in my own community, because I'm from the Broken Head Ojibwe Nation, and when somebody commits suicide, we put the youth on a suicide watch, because if one does it, then there's usually a chain that goes on. And we don't want to lose the ones that we love. You know, like we may make mistakes in life. Nobody's perfect. But we don't want to watch our loved ones die. You know, a parent, when they look at their child, no matter how old their child gets or whatever it is that they do in life, they're always going to be a baby in the eyes of their parents. And nobody wants to lose the ones that they love. I was one of the lucky ones, but I don't believe that they're going to keep sending everybody back. And, you know, and
I'd like to add that they'll send anyone back that will agree. And if the life script is not been played out yet, then it's very likely that they'll be sent back. I've seen many near-death experiences where the person takes a huge overdose of something, and you know, this is a, you know, we're talking about doses where they should not be coming back, but they do. They somehow squeak it out and come back. I've heard it enough where, you know, again, if the life script doesn't call for it at that moment, and there is a consenting agreement made between an entity or entities or anything that is, or a desire to come back, then that's the way it will play out. It's a really interesting aspect of these things, because yeah, so just keep that in mind.
I don't know what happens to their spirit afterwards. Because, like, for me, I never, well, to be honest, I see, like being here in the world, I see this as hell. But hell is whatever you make it. Life is whatever you make it.
So she herself says, I consider this hell.
To be honest, I see, like being here in the world, I see this as hell.
It's truth right there. We are... Okay, I'll leave it at that.
But hell is whatever you make it. Life is whatever
Sure.
you make it.
Sure.
And
life is whatever you make it, but also if the the deck is stacked against you from the jump, that's difficult. That's difficult. It doesn't make things easy, even if you go through all those years of absolute horror and end up having a near-death experience and everything flips. I mean, it's great and all, but doesn't change the fact that our true spirit essence is not that of a human body. It's not our natural form. It's foreign. It's not. It's a governor. It's a limiter on accessing our true self. But if you don't realize the power that you hold within to deny consent, then you're just going to repeat this thing over and over and over until you figure it out. And in between all that, when you do come back, you're going to get a fresh new veil of forgetfulness. You're going to come here, you're not going to have any recollection of who you are, where you came from, or why you are here. That's the biggest telltale sign. I mean, that should be... I talk to people about that, in just random comment sections, and I say, oh, well, what about the veil of forgetfulness? And I'll get all these excuses, loads of excuses. People just, Stockholm Syndrome on steroids. People just excusing it away as if, oh, it's normal. It's normal, no big deal. Well, if we didn't have access, if we had access to all the things we did in previous lives, well, we would, we'd lose our minds. That's the most common response I get when I'm talking to people. It blows my mind. It's not, no, forget about the, how that it's the most unfair advantage possible that you can receive when coming here. That just flies out the window. No. If you remembered all the things you did in the past, or had recollection of how you're supposed to spiritually evolve and ascend here, then you'd lose your mind. That is the canned response. I swear, I wish I could capture how many times I've seen that, because it's absurd. So yeah, well, we got maybe another, we got like 2 more minutes in this, and then we'll talk a little bit further after this. So let's finish this up.
life is whatever you make it.
It is.
We survived at rock bottom. Never knew what anything above that was. So despair was there almost all the time.
And people don't realize that there's a lot of Native people that they're still living like that.
Mm-hmm.
They're still living like that. And we gotta talk to each other.
Yeah, that's the big step. Reaching out and accepting that help, or looking for that help. And there's always somebody there that is willing to listen. And if people can't talk to somebody that's close by, there's Teen Talk, or there's hotlines out there that are willing to listen, and you don't know those people.
Yeah.
So it's safe. It's safe to talk to them. But it's not good to actually follow through on those thoughts of dying or those plans of taking your own life. Because that's what the government wants us to do. They want us to either take our own lives or to take the lives of another Indian. They don't want us to survive. So,
Well, I just want to throw on top of that they want everybody to be fighting with each other. It's definitely seems to be. I mean, it's really even hard to say this, but it does seem more targeted towards, you know, indigenous tribes and things like that. But I mean, what I've seen in America, I mean, they're and around the world, the target is on everybody. The target needs to be on everybody because that's how they keep control. This is just my opinion. You know, I don't live in her situation, but I've lived in neighborhoods where I've seen how the division boils up and is completely manufactured and targeted towards neighborhoods and groups of people on purpose. But that's how they keep that iron fist going. You know, and it's no disrespect to Sharon here. It's just something I've noticed personally, and I'm sure many of you have in your neighborhoods, or just living in this realm. It's all about the iron grip being thrown down on everyone and anyone, and there are segments of society that are worse off than others, and that is all by design. So, but in the end, everything funnels into the same receptacle, and we're all kind of thrown in there and divided so we don't unite and discover our true spirit essence and take back ourselves. Because at the end of the day, it's all about getting us back here, or keeping us within the confines of the system lifetime after lifetime, or in other material realms that they have, or other astral realms, whatever the case may be. As long as you are funneled into that and within their system, and they're able to throw that veil over you, they don't care. They don't care. They do not care.
you know, the best thing is to just keep trying, keep doing your best day by day.
Absolutely.
You know, if you say a prayer and ask for help somewhere along the line, that help will come.
I don't agree with that, but help within. Help within. It's tapping into your true spirit essence, not asking for outside guidance that could potentially taint your experience. That's my opinion on it.
And the world won't be better off without you.
That's right. The world won't be better off.
The world will be a worse place because you did that.
Oops.
Yeah. Because you're affecting the lives of those that love you. That's the one thing that you can't forget.
Thanks for talking.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for listening.
And thank you for sharing. So, yeah, that was, just, I want to thank Aaron Peters for sharing that video. He did a great job in connecting with Sharon. I know in his description, I think he said he knew Sharon since 2012. And let me just double check. Yeah, he knew Sharon since 2012. And he posted the video in May of 2020. So I want to make sure that, you know, we send our thanks to Aaron and Sharon for being so kind and sharing this experience with us. And my heart goes out to Sharon for her bravery and commitment to spreading awareness, and especially among the indigenous community and the world. I mean, it's just, can't thank her enough, and I tip my hat. Thank you so much. So, as you could see, my friends, this was a tough one. It's one of those cases where I'm not going to. Well, at least I don't think I'm gonna like burst out and flip my lid and all that stuff. I have compassion and empathy for Sharon's situation. I have compassion and empathy for Aaron and wanting to be more open within his community and Sharon's community about the problem they are facing with suicide. So, there's I do think that, even though Sharon was told and learned growing up that, go to the light, I think, she got a raw deal. Okay? She got a crappy life script, which, yes, she agreed to, but also was deceived with. And was also told in the process, again, about going to the light, and that was the answer. And I think with her experience and having that knowledge already embedded in her throughout her life, that really sticks out for me. It shows me that that narrative has been passed down in her community, just like it's in ours, whether it's through media or it doesn't. You pick it. However, there's light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, that's how often I think probably everybody on Earth has heard that. I don't care where you live. I'm sure everybody's heard that. There's a reason why that is so prevalent in our realm. There's a reason why the moon is in the sky every day, too. There's a reason why the sun is in the sky every day. Because you have the white light, you have the golden light. Two sides of the same coin.
If you're going to try, go all the way. Otherwise, don't even start. If you're going to try, go all the way. This could mean losing girlfriends, wives, relatives, jobs, and maybe your mind.
Seasons watching.